Hi, folks. I hope you all had a great Christmas. I know I had a pretty good one. Nice and quiet. Put my feet up. Just what was needed. Anyway, I'm back with part 2 of my end of year haul. This covers some VCLT that I was kindly sent over the past month or so. Along with a few finds from the recent Kendal record fair. So let's start off with the VCLT. Now, if you watch Michael P. Dawson's wonderful channel, you'll have seen that he recently did a look at the Yes solo albums that came out in 1976, where each of the members of Yes took time off to do a solo album. Now, I commented on that video stating that I had got 3 of the 5 albums, and there were 2 that I'd never actually even heard, never mind bought. And my good friend, Mr. John Bellamy, saw that comment and kindly sent me the 2 albums that I was missing. The first one is the keyboardist Patrick Moraz's album, The Story of I. As I say, this was released in 1976 and was his first solo album. This is one I see all the time in the cheap bins at record fairs, but I've never picked it up. I think that's partly because I had an album or 2 of his from the 1980s way back, and I really didn't get on with those. So I've never bothered getting this album. But that, I think, was a mistake, because this is a pretty decent album. Obviously, Moraz plays a host of keyboard instruments throughout this album, but he's also got great players like Ray Gomez on guitar and Jeff Berlin on bass, Alphonse Mouzon on drums on here, plus a Brazilian percussion outfit, I think 11-piece percussion outfit. So Brazilian music and Latin music is a big factor in this album. It's a concept album based on a short story of his, which you get here, Story of I. And this is a pretty good album on the whole, particularly the more proggy instrumental fusion tracks, which I can imagine Yes doing. If you've heard the album on which he appears, Relayer, you'll know that at that point they were going in a more fusion direction with that album. And there are 2 or 3 tracks on here which I could just imagine Yes doing. So in some ways it's a shame that he never stayed longer than 1 album and maybe kept some of those tracks for Yes. But overall, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. The other album I didn't have, and was one I'm glad I'd never got at the time, because I wouldn't have appreciated. And this is Alan White, the drummer's Ramshackled. Now, this is not a prog album by any means. This is sort of a mixture of R&B, blue-eyed soul pop, and to a lesser degree, some fusion. Like I say, at the time, I wouldn't have liked this at all. But on listening to it now, I can appreciate it more. It's not a great album by any means, but there's 1 or 2 really good tracks. The instrumental is Avakak, which is a sort of one of the fusion tracks, is pretty good. And I like the Song of Innocence, which is the only one on which Yes members appear, with Steve Howe on guitar and John Anderson on vocals. I would have preferred him to do an out-and-out fusion album, but even the sort of R&B tracks aren't bad at all. If you want to know more about these albums in depth, go and watch Michael's video. He does a better job on describing these than I ever could. So thank you, John, for those. The next one was also from John, and if you've watched one of his recent videos, you'll see he did a video on this band, and that's the Swedish prog band Ritual, who are favourites of John's. I had heard of Ritual, but had never actually investigated their music. I think because I thought they were sort of a neo-prog band, which isn't usually my sort of thing. They were formed in 1992 in Stockholm, and this is their album from 2007. I think was it their fourth album? And I think it's generally considered to be one of their best. This is the Hemulic Voluntary band. Like I said, I was a bit wary of this, but I really enjoyed it. This is, I wouldn't describe this as neo-prog really. There are elements of Gentle Giant, Jethro Tull, because I think folk music informs quite a bit of this album. As it does with a lot of Swedish prog, to be fair. So I think along with that, those folk influences and that mixture of classic prog, but with a modern touch to it. This has got quite a stylistic range in it. There's a great 27 nearly minute track, A Dangerous Journey. I love the title track as well. They've just recently, I think, put out a new album, which is getting very good reviews. As I say, go and check out John's video for a detailed look at these. The next one is from John, but indirectly this one. One of his recent videos was a review of an album by a friend of his that he's, I think, just sort of reconnected with. And that guy is a guy called Adrian Harvey. And he did this album, Temporary Position. And I heard the snippets on John's channel, commented that I was impressed with what I was hearing. And Adrian saw that comment and contacted me to say he'd be happy to burn off a copy and send it to me, which he did. Thank you very much, Adrian. Now, this is sort of contemporary singer-songwriter, I suppose. Contemporary singer-songwriter stuff, for me, tends to be a bit hit and miss. A lot of it, at best, often at best, is pleasant, but nothing I particularly want to go out and buy. But there is something about this album that I really enjoy. Musically, melodically, it's very strong. The vocals are excellent, particularly the layered vocals, which I'm not sure whether that's Adrian along with a backing vocal or his own vocals doubled up or more, but they're superbly well done. Lyrically, it deals with some serious topics, but behind it all, there's also a sort of wry sense of humour to a lot of the songs, which I like an awful lot. There's good use of the ukulele, an instrument I'm not usually fond of, but there's a couple of songs with just Adrian and ukulele, and they are excellent. I was really impressed with this. And he's had 2 or 3 listens already, which is a lot for me at the moment. It's been so busy. But no, I would highly recommend this to anybody who likes their sort of contemporary singer-songwriter style. It's somebody, I think, I can't remember who, likened him to Stephen Duffy. A name I know, but whose music I don't know, so I can't really comment on whether that's true or not. But again, go and check out John's review of the whole album. But thank you very much, Adrian, for sending me this. Really impressed.
Why do you want the most? How do you get the tears? How do you like to take a seat? But don't go, you'll never know. You want the most when you're tired of feeling low. Come on, hey, over there. Why do you want the most? You're so young, the tears. How do you like to take a seat? Because it really is just it's time to captain the boat that you row. Come on, hey, over there. Many more years, or perhaps a few days, as they carry you off to your grave, to bury you deep down below. More food for the flowers to grow. What do you want them all to say as the tears start to show? You like to play it safe, no. You like to have a go.
The next 2 VCLTs are again on CD, and these came from my good friend Richard, the Vinylizing Progger. Richard's the Norwegian ambassador for prog music over there in the States. But he kindly sent me 2 excellent albums. Oops, should take them out of the plastic bags. The first is Tony Levin's Bringing It Down to the Bass. Levin will be known to all of you, I'm sure. Member of King Crimson, worked a lot with Peter Gabriel and a lot of other great artists. Superb bassist and player of the Chapman stick. And this is his latest album from 2024. This is excellent stuff, as you'd expect with a player like Tony Levin. And this sort of, somebody I think described it like an autobiography, in that it probably covers most of the styles that he's been involved with in his career. It starts off very much in a sort of jazz fusion vein, and I thought that was the way it was going to go. But this covers an awful lot of, like I say, other styles. You get funk music with a great Uncle Funkster. That's superb. You get avant-garde music. You get even a bit of barbershop quartet style vocals. You get some heavy stuff. I mean, the players on this are an incredible bunch. You get Jerry Marotta, you get his brother Pete Levin, you get Vinnie Colaiuta, Earl Slick, Mike Portnoy, Gary Husband. You get Mr. Fripp himself, of course, Pat Mastelotto, David Torn. Great selection of musicians, and there's some wonderful stuff on here. I particularly love the track on the drums, which is just Tony Levin on vocals, no instruments. And what he does is he name checks, I think, virtually every drummer that he's ever worked with. Now, this is really enjoyable. I think there was only one track I wasn't so keen on. I can't remember whether it was Road Dogs or Boston Rocks, which is a bit in the heavier vein. But the rest of it, particularly as it goes later into the album and it gets a bit more experimental, and you get the one with Fripp, with the Frippatronics. Wonderful stuff.
Bruford, Bill Bruford, Brian Blade, Billy Cobham, Brian Blade, Billy Cobham, Bill Bruford, Bill Bruford, Bill Bruford, Mike Portnoy, and Narada, Michael Walden. Bruford, Bill Bruford, Brian Blade, Billy Cobham, Billy Mundy, Bobby Ray, Bill Bruford, Bill Bruford, Malcolm Moore, Russ Kunkel, Luther Riggs, and Louis Bragason. Bruford, Bill Bruford, Larry London, Richard Crooks, Jeff Siegel, Joe Vitale, Bill Bruford, Doug Yowell, Shabby Reta, and Narada, Michael Walden. Manu Kache, Manny Assis, Annie Carey, Manu Kache, Mickey Curry, Alan Berger, Manu Kache, Aaron Comas, Kenny Aronoff, Manu Kache, Terry Bozio,
And the other one that Richard sent me, and I was really impressed with this one as well, is the band Squeaky Feet. Squeaky Feet are a sort of psychedelic prog jam band from Colorado, Denver, Colorado. I think, I'm not sure if this is their only studio album to date, but if you go on their Bandcamp page, there is a ton of live downloads. Virtually every concert I think they do, they record and make available. And that's where they stretch out. So it's, as with most bands in the jam band vein, they are better live. Because as I say, they stretch everything out. These are definitely in the sort of prog fusion end of the jam band scene. Reminds me a little bit of Humphreys McGee, though it's a long time, I must admit, since I've heard Humphreys McGee. Though I think these are quite a bit heavier. They almost threaten at times to get into the sort of prog metal vein, but thankfully never do. Really impressed with their playing, even more so when you hear the live albums. Well worth going to their Bandcamp page and downloading some of the live shows. Wonderful stuff. So thank you, Richard, for those. Really enjoyed those. And the final bit of VCLT was from Dale, from his channel Gatefold 33. Dale, like myself, is a big fan of Mr. Richard Thompson. And he sent me this album, Mirror Blue, which is Thompson's 8th album, released in 1994. I've been a fan of Thompson since the late 70s, and I usually get every album as it comes out. But in the 90s, obviously, and the early 2000s, I was buying CDs rather than vinyl. His albums were obviously still getting vinyl releases, but in, I think, limited numbers. And at the moment, they're very difficult and expensive to find. So I was really stoked to get this from Dale. It's a typical Thompson album, glorious guitar work, great vocals, doom and gloom songs. This one might not be quite as good as what came before, which is Rumour and Sigh, but this is still a wonderful album. Most famous song is probably Bee's Wing, a beautiful ballad. But you've got some great ones like The Way It Shows and Easy There, Steady Now, MGBGT, Mingus Eyes. Wonderful album. I am really, like I say, very pleased to have this. Thank you very much, Dale. This was a great gift. Thank you.
With a precious load, squeeze its guts all over the road. Excuse me, I had to smile, lost my grip too for a while. I said, easy there, steady now. Easy there, steady now. She didn't have the decency to sweep away what's left of me. I don't have the presence of mind to walk along in a straight line. Easy there, steady now.
The next come from the Kendal Record Fair, and at the fair this time there was a new seller who had tons of sealed albums, so they weren't ultra cheap, but they were cheaper than you would get in the shops anyway. A lot of those were, those radio shows that are very popular now, reissues of old radio shows, which are a bit hit and miss. Some of them can be brilliant, some of them can be really bad, even from the same label. But he also had a number of reissues, I think mainly from European labels to a large extent. He says he goes over to Europe quite often and comes back with a whole bunch. And with a lot of these, he had multiple copies. So I ended up buying 3 albums from him. 3 albums that I'd heard of, but I'd never heard, except for the first one. The first one is the folk duo Fresh Maggots. I've heard 2 or 3 tracks on various compilations, but I've never heard the album as in full. Fresh Maggots were a folk duo from Nuneaton, Warwickshire. They consisted of Mick Burgoyne and Lee Dolphin, who between them played a variety of instruments, including guitars, glockenspiel, tin whistles, and strings. They only released 2 albums. This one in 1971 on RCA originally. This is a Sunbeam reissue from 2024 this year. And they got back together and did a reunion album, I think, back in 2020. This is acid folk with, nice vocals, trippy 6 and 12 string guitars, tin whistle, as I said. But what you do get in quite a few of them, and at first it takes you a bit aback, is quite a nice fuzz guitar tone throughout some of these songs. So this one, I think, became quite a collectible album. It goes for a lot of money. So I've never seen one out in the wild, though, so I was glad to pick this up as a reissue. I wouldn't put it up there with some of the other bands of that era, like Fuchsia and Jan Dukes de Grey and people like that, but it's a nice album. I've only listened to it the once, to be fair. Needs a bit more of a listen, but well worth seeking out for you acid folk, psych folk fans.
for work at 7:30, down the factory 8 hours a day, plugging the guts out, making money, all I get $6 a day. Come on you people, let's get together, forget your work and have more play, down the door tomorrow morning, in the queue for your weekly pay.
The second one I got from the guy is a reissue of the 1973 CWT album, The 100 Weight. CWT were a British trio of Graham Jones on lead guitar, piano and organ, Peter Kirk on bass guitar and piano, and Colin White on drums. They played a heavy, bluesy, brassy rock. They only did this one album, which surprisingly only got released in Germany on the Cook label, famous krautrock label. And what makes them stand apart from quite a lot of other heavy bands of that period is the use of brass. Now, this isn't the use of brass as in sort of a band like Chicago or like that. A lot of the brass is used to just accentuate various riffs and musical moments in the songs. It doesn't get great reviews, but I liked it. People don't like, I think it's Graham Jones who does the vocals, but I think he's a decent hard rock singer. It's pretty heavy. The use of brass I quite like, which I wouldn't have expected to in music of this sort. But if you like 70s heavy rock and you don't mind like brass in it, I'd check them out. The other one I got from the same seller was this one by Miller Anderson, his album Bright City from 1971. Miller Anderson was the vocalist, I think, and guitarist in the Keith Hartley band. He was also associated with a ton of other bands like Spencer Davis, Savoy Brown, Mountain, Chicken Shack. I think this was done after his spell in the Keith Hartley band. But this album is more, I think, of a folk singer-songwriter album than a lot of what he was doing with Keith Hartley, though there are a couple of the more bluesy rock Hartley style numbers. Again, it's not one that gets a lot of love for some reason, and I really enjoyed this, particularly tracks like Alice Mercy, to Who It May Concern, and the nice folky Shadows Cross My Wall. It's a really good album. It features Mick Weaver, who played keyboards with the Strawbs, Gary Thane, the bassist for Uriah Heep, Junior Campbell, Lynn Dobson, and plays flute on here, and Harold Beckett plays flugelhorn. You've always got to have a couple of the British jazzers on these albums from this period. But I think this is a really good album. I really enjoyed this. So I don't know why it doesn't get the love it deserves. But I would recommend this. Check him out.
saw a flagship sailing by. We have found the answer, the sailors cry. But just as they were saying that, their seas ran dry, leaving just the shadows across my wall.
Now we got to the final two. First off, we have, the Eberhard Weber's Colours with their album Little Movement on ECM. This album's from 1981. Features a great lineup, obviously with Eberhard Weber himself on bass. You have Charlie Mariano on soprano sax and flute, Rainer Brünninghaus on piano and synth, and the wonderful John Marshall on drums and percussion. This is generally introspective jazz fusion, as you'd probably expect from the ECM label. It's a generally quiet album. There are a couple of numbers where the band break out a little bit, but it's a really nice album. Tony, I think, on the final track, No Trees, he said that we get like a bit of the more avant-garde stylings, but I think some people might think this is more background music. I think there's more to it than that. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, particularly the longest track, Barley, which was written by Brünninghaus, which is one where they do break out a little bit more. But nice one. And finally, we have an album by a band I heard God knows how many years ago. And at the time, they did nothing for me. I wasn't really interested in them. And I've never really followed up on them since then. I think I've heard a couple of things recently that made me think maybe I should try them again. And that is the Penguin Cafe Orchestra with their first album, Music from the Penguin Cafe, that I think was released in 1976, was recorded between 74 and 76. The Penguin Cafe Orchestra were the brainchild, the band of set up by Simon Jeffers, if that's the way you meant to pronounce his name. I think it went through a number of different lineups over the course of its career. And their music it's not easily to categorize. a mixture of, I think, modern classical chamber music with folk elements and minimalism. There's nothing particularly rock up about this, but it's beautiful stuff. The lineup is cello, violin, electric piano, and electric guitar, plus some ukulele. It was originally, I think, released on Brian Eno's Obscure label, and you can see that it has that modern classical feel that a lot of the stuff on Obscure had, and you can tell probably the influence of Eno on this. This is a reissue on EG Records. A lot of it is very beautiful, very easy to listen to, though it does stray into avant-garde areas in one or two places, but nothing particularly out there. The guy that I bought this off had, I think, a couple of other albums by them, and I wish now that I'd invested in all three. I can only hope that he still has the other two at the next Kendal Record Fair, which I don't think is till February. So probably not likely that he's still got them. But no, I am glad I've reinvestigated this band and definitely want to hear more. Well, that's part 2 over with. There's going to be a third part if I can get it done before the end of the year, because yesterday, this is late Sunday night when I'm recording this. Yesterday, my memory's going. My friend and I went to the Windermere Record Fair, and I've picked up a couple of other albums. Plus, I've had a couple of albums come through in the post, Discog purchases. So I want to get those shown before the end of the year, before we start having to do all the vinyl tags. Anyway, all the very best. See you in the next video.